It's 2025 as I record this, and in my opinion, there's something you should aspire to be able to do if you want to be serious about your technique. Is it crazy singles? That doesn't hurt. Stick tricks? Extra credit. For me, in my humble opinion, as an internet educator, it's this. The Tony Williams 5-note ride pattern with both hands. I wouldn't be saying this if I hadn't made the very same transformation myself. And it's not just for show. This is like the overhead squat of drum hand technique. Not the 4-minute mile, more like the 7-minute mile. It's the canary in the coal mine for a lot of other things in your hand technique. You can't do the Tony Williams ride pattern unless you've trained your fingers well, you can feel how to manage the energy of the stick and prevent it from stalling, and you have good double stroke mechanics. And if you've never deep dove into your left hand, you may not know what you're missing. And trust me, after playing traditional for a bunch of years, when I first switched back to matched, I was a death gripper. I just gripped from the back fulcrum, not wrong, and kind of wrist flail. That's good for some things, but as we'll see, it's very limited when you want to do anything other than soft or quiet strokes. But once they've felt the feeling of their left hand gaining some efficiency, a non-trivial single-digit number of students have told me it's improved stuff like their dynamics and helped their fills feel more relaxed. But isn't that like impossible? Like perfect pitch? Without even getting into perfect pitch, no. It's way more like a muscle up. Something that anybody in decent shape who can do a bodyweight pull-up can learn to do, and once you feel it, etc., etc. Anyway, I'm Nate, and people call me the 80/20 drummer. And today on the channel, can you do this with your left hand? If you want to be a serious player, you probably should. And we're going to show you how, complete with free transcriptions for download at the link below the player. Stay tuned. Let's start by what we mean by the Tony Williams ride pattern. Tony, the drummer for the legendary Miles Davis Quintet, among many other things, was famous for taking the standard jazz ride cymbal pattern, spangalang spangalang, and extending upon it to make spangalangalang. Then doing that really fast. Over the years, it's become kind of an acid test for jazz drummers.
Welcome back to my short series on how to play like Tony Williams.
And as the internet's taken over, for all drummers. But why? Sure, it's one of those hard to fake things. Say you're a total novice and you pick up the sticks and you're like, "Oog, man, hit drum." You can probably figure out how to hit things with the stick and even do some basic fills, maybe even a beat or two. Drums are literal like that, like a piano. Unlike a guitar or a saxophone where you have pesky things like fingering and fretting. See drum, hit drum. Drum makes sound. Like a piano with 5 keys.
How you did that?
But I bet the caveman couldn't do this. You can't do that with just brute strength. You need 2 other ingredients, speed and efficiency. The stick has to bounce just right, then your hand has to receive it and put the energy back into it at just the right time and at just the right level of force to maintain this exquisite equilibrium between bounce and finger force. You have to be able to adjust the surface you're hitting like an active suspension on a BMW to keep the energy management in the optimal window. But it's also not just showing off. That same energy management will help you do nearly everything you need to do on drums. The difference between this and this. So, how do we do it? In fact, Chapter 1, how do we do it? At its root, the Tony pattern is 5 notes. And the broad consensus is it's a drop, catch, catch, drop, catch. If we do the snare cam and over-intellectualize the heck out of it, that means a stroke initiated with a downward wrist motion, from which we harness the rebound from the initial stroke to make 2 strokes with the fingers, catching the second on the heel of the hand, then another simple drop catch. Don't worry, I'll break all of this down. At maximum efficiency, the fingers are kicking in as well, compensating for the rebound of the surface we're hitting, and the wrist motions are subtle enough that if you're not looking for it, you may not even be able to tell there's a drop and catch happening. Watch me demonstrate on the cymbal slowish to faster. Next, let's obviously back way up. What is a drop catch? Or a push pull? It's not perfectly analogous, but imagine a cool handshake where you're catching a fist bump going down, then catching a second one coming back up. Instead of two motions of the wrist, it's one down, one up, one push, and one pull. Quick sidebar. Isn't this just Moeller? Well, kind of. You've maybe heard of the Moeller method, named for Sanford A. Moeller, who wrote some technique books in the late 19th century, apparently after watching some Civil War snare drummers. And yes, I had to Google that, but Moeller technique includes this down-up thing. I should do a whole video on Moeller because it's super useful. So, in the sense that you're getting 2 for 1, Moeller is related to drop catch. I like to say drop catch, or push-pull, is like super efficient Moeller. Moeller if you didn't lose a bunch of energy. Less efficient Moeller steals energy from the stick on the downstroke, and has to put more energy back into the system to get an even stroke. Push-pull, or drop catch, harnesses most of that energy through stick height and wrist and finger flex, so less new energy is required to keep the thing going. But if you take push-pull away and play it on pillows, where there's not much energy anyway, it starts to look a lot like Moeller. Okay, back to the main event. Chapter 2. Yeah, but how do we actually do this thing? Remember how that whole Moeller thing was supposed to be a sidebar? Well, not quite, because I often think it's best to start with Moeller and then make it more efficient. With Moeller, you have a downstroke, just the caveman thing. Try to stay relaxed, but don't overthink it. Then you have an upstroke. This one's more abstract, but it's easiest to practice by playing one very soft stroke, followed immediately by a very loud one. Often, your wrist and hand will automatically load up on energy to get the loud stroke right after the soft one, by making a whip type motion. You can practice these isolated. Soft, loud, soft, loud. Eventually, just try to play them as continuous 8 notes. Soft, loud, soft, loud, soft, loud, soft, loud. Then, you can start with the loud. When you go a little faster, and let the loud stroke rebound a little more, you're approaching push-pull more. I often find it's easier to teach students to do Moeller for a week first, if I then want to segue into a push-pull, because you need to get the feeling of getting 2 for 1, and no verbal explanation seems to work as well as just approaching it from the sloppy, inefficient Moeller side. But now, let's pretend we've got a fully baked Moeller already in the oven. If you've experienced the feeling of Moeller, what I'm about to say will make more sense. For the loud stroke, start with the hand in the playing position, and use the wrist to raise the stick almost to vertical. When you make the loud stroke, try to allow the stick to rebound fully. That's going to require allowing your fingers to extend more. But don't let them come off the stick. Practice the loud until you can get the stick to rebound at least back to the starting position without losing contact with your fingers. You may have to pinch it in the hand to keep it at that angle. Now do the soft, in quotations, stroke, but use that stick height to try to make it the same volume as the loud one. You'll notice you need to pull with your fingers a little bit. Do a few reps with this just to feel it. Now let's take the stick out of the hand and talk about some physical properties of the body that make this work. If I hold my hand out at a neutral angle and fully relax my wrist, it drops below the plane of the forearm. But something else happens. The fingers effortlessly open. Now, if I retract my wrist back to the forearm plane, without needing to do anything, the fingers close. This is the property of the human body that helps us with the stroke. Now I'll put the stick back in my hand and try to do the same thing. Remember, the loud stroke from Moeller, but let the wrist drop, let the fingers extend, and let the stick rebound to almost vertical. Good players let it rebound past vertical, but I find that's more like a 301 lesson. Final adjustment. If you want to play these back to back, it's helpful to reset the stick height after the catch, so you have energy to get it to bounce again. Sidebar, little troubleshooting. There's a lot that can go wrong between the theory and the practice. The most common is the fingers coming off the stick. This is a symptom of things getting out of sync. If you don't bounce the stick hard enough, you may pull your fingers away anticipating the bounce that never comes. Sometimes I like to tell my students, there's no magic here. If you bounce a basketball, it will only bounce as high as the energy you put into it. If you're dribbling efficiently, you bounce the ball hard enough that it comes back to you and you don't have to chase it. It's the same with the drop catch push pull. If it's working, the bounce produces enough energy that the stick moves your fingers and you get them out of the way, but in time with the stick, so it stays in contact with your fingers. Got it? Whew. Chapter 3. But what about Tony? Okay, all of this was preamble to actually getting the Spangalangalang, because we couldn't talk about Spangalang until we understood and felt the mechanism in drop catch. Now we exploit another simple principle. We can insert single strokes between drop and catch. After the drop stroke, if we've done it right, we've got stick height to play with. We can get a rebound full stroke by pulling with the fingers without changing the position of the wrist much. So we've gotten a stroke and we're still in the drop position. Then we can do the catch. We can actually do this with multiple strokes, but try it with just one. Drop, full stroke, catch. Drop, full stroke, catch. Spangalang. Spangalang. Take this over to the ride cymbal, and it's our ride beat. But to get to Tony, we need one more drop catch. Putting the whole thing together. Drop, full stroke, catch, drop, catch. The rest is a lifetime of refinement. But some cues. If it's working well, the stick should stay in contact with the fingers. And you should feel a balance between the energy you're putting in and the energy the stick is giving back. And here's the crazy thing. You can do this with both hands. I like to take this to the ride cymbal, for a lot of reasons I cover in this video. And when we rotate the hand more French grip, for instance to play the cymbal, the wrist drop turns into more wrist rotation. A couple quick notes about this. Sometimes people get carried away and feel like they have to play everything with the stick pinched out in their fingers. Tranquilo. For low and slow strokes, you can use your conventional back fulcrum wrist strokes. In fact, it's useful practicing double slow to fast on a single hand at low volume, just using the wrist until you get to a tempo where the stick naturally takes flight and separates from the heel of your hand. You can do this with 3-note groups, Spangalang, as well.
And that's how you get the gig!
Did we do a thing, you guys? Anyway, hope you enjoyed this one. Leave a comment below if you've messed with this before. Let me know if I'm way off base by thinking this is kind of the new black when it comes to hand technique in 2025. Also, don't forget, everything we detailed in this lesson has been transcribed for you, and you can download that PDF for free by clicking the link below the player and telling us where to send it on the next page. Dudes, it's been real, always enjoy these. See you again real soon in another Lesson of the Week.